All right, good morning. It is Sunday, October the 24th. I'm a little late on getting on here, so I apologize if anyone was waiting for the 8 o'clock moment. Today in worship, we are going to be focusing on the word in our cycle of spirituality, the word forward. And in worship, we're going to hear the scripture readings from Exodus and Philippians. And the Exodus story, or this portion of the Exodus story that we're hearing today, is after the Israelites have left Egypt and they're heading toward what we know is that they're heading toward the Red Sea, and Pharaoh's army is starting to come after them. And they begin to panic and they begin to get scared, and they start asking to go back to Egypt. They don't want to die. They don't know what's ahead, and they aren't comfortable with that. So we're going to talk about today in worship how, sometimes moving forward makes us uncomfortable, right? But there's another scripture reading that I really wanted to use today in worship, but it just was, a little too much. So I'm going to share it with you this morning. And it is from Isaiah chapter 43. I'm going to read verses 1 and 2, and then I'm going to pick up in 15 and stop somewhere that makes sense. Okay, now let's just be reminded that chapter 43 of Isaiah is considered second Isaiah. And so it's the part of the prophecy, it's part of the sharing of God's heart with the people who have been in exile and who will be, who are just, on that verge of coming back to Israel, coming back to Jerusalem. So I offer this to you. I'm going to offer that there is a connection back to the Exodus story as well. So be listening for that. So this is Isaiah 43, verses 1 through 2, and then 15 through 21. All right. And I'm reading from the Inclusive Bible this morning. But now Leah and Rachel and Jacob hear the word of Yahweh, the one who created you, the one who fashioned you, Israel. Do not be afraid, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. When you pass through the seas, I will be with you. When you pass over the rivers, you will not drown. Walk through fire, and you will not be singed. Walk through flames, and you will not be burned. Then on to 15. I am Yahweh, your Holy One, Israel's creator and ruler. Thus says Yahweh, who made a road through the sea, a path through the mighty waters, who led chariots and warriors to their doom, a mighty army fallen, never to rise again, snuffed out and extinguished like a wick. Forget the events of the past. Ignore the things of long ago. Look, I am doing something new. Now it springs forth. Can't you see it? I'm making a road in the desert and setting rivers to flow in the desert land. Wild beasts will honor me, for I will put water in, wild beasts will honor me, the jackals and the ostriches, for I will put water in the desert and rivers in the wasteland for my chosen people to drink. These people whom I formed for myself, so that they might declare my praise. All right, well, this fits in maybe obviously because as we are looking forward, as we are looking toward what God is doing in us individually and as a church, like we have to, we don't have to, but we have this invitation in the scripture is to rethink and to imagine and to trust this God who is in the future and is calling us toward God, toward the divine, toward complete shalom, wholeness. And so the scriptures give us this glimpse of how over and over God has kind of displaced God's people, and in order that they may become transformed. Right. And so when we think about the Exodus story, God takes them from this awful place called Egypt, this oppressive lifestyle, way of life. God brings them into the wilderness where it's messy and ugly and yucky and terribly filled with anxiety for the people, but so that God may create something new. And God knows what that new thing is going to be. The people of Israel did not. And so they complained. They wanted to go back to Egypt. They wanted to go back, even though it was the most awful, oppressive life they could possibly lead. In the same way as God's people are in exile, and this is like, somewhere around 800 years later, right? People, again, now they're in exile. And all they want to do is they just want to get back to the way things were. But the way things were not holy, was not God-driven, was not what God wanted for God's people. But once they've been through this desert, this wilderness of the exile, then God is calling them into a new future. And God is the one who knows these plans. God knows this future. And the people don't understand exactly. So God says, forget about the old things and just look, I'm doing something new. I feel like we're in that same place right now in terms of not just individuals, but really in terms of the church. And what is God calling us to? What is God saying? Forget about the past. Just forget about those things. Forget about ancient times. Look, I'm doing something new. God is always calling God's people into a future, because the future of God, the future that God has for us, is only filled with goodness, with hopefulness, with peace, with grace, where justice reigns, where all are welcomed. And this is the future we want, isn't it? This is what we want to live in. But letting go of what we've been, letting go of past, is always hard for us as human beings. Our scriptures tell us time and again that God remains with us, that God is the one who guides us into these new things, and we can trust God. So may these words add possibly to your worship experience if you watch our worship service, and I invite you to do so. If you are coming in person, you will definitely hear this, and I hope that these words help you in that. You may be hearing this and watching this after our worship service, and it still can really hopefully add to the experience of what we heard in worship. So may you have a beautiful, blessed day on this Sunday, the 24th of October, or whatever day it is that you are engaging in this worship service. So God blessings to you, and may your day be filled with peace.